Painting flexible polyurethanes. In this tutorial, I'll be showing some tips and techniques for successful painting of flexible polyurethanes. And these techniques can be used over both polyurethane elastomers or rubbers, as well as flexible polyurethane foams. Now for this video, I'll be showing brush techniques such as flick brush and regular brush painting, as well as airbrush as well. Now for this video, I'll be painting a polyurethane rubber face, and this is just a very simple face that I cast up in translucent polyurethane rubber using SkinFlex 5. And these techniques are really important if you're casting special effects skins or medical simulators, especially where you're using a really soft polyurethane like SkinFlex 5 and backing it with a soft polyurethane foam. Anytime you have a flexible foam part, it's really important to know the right techniques to get paint to stick to it that will then stretch and move with the finished part. Because obviously if you use regular acrylic paint or something like that, when you start stretching it and moving it around, that paint will pop right off. So it's really important that you understand the basics of painting polyurethane rubbers and flexible foams so that you get a good bond between your paint medium and your flexible part. Now, good painting starts with good casting and surface prep. Always make sure that you're following the manufacturer's data sheets and you're mixing everything properly so that you don't wind up with parts that have an oily or sticky surface and then you can't get your paint medium to stick to it. And also surface prep as far as removing any mold release residue. In the casting process, you want to make sure that you understand the mold release that you're using and you're ready to remove any residue off the cast part in order to get your paint to stick. Here, I'm wiping down the cast face with some acetone and clean paper towels to remove any mold release residue, but remember you want to make sure you're ready to adjust according to the mold release you're using. Make sure you avoid mold releases that contain silicone oil because those are almost impossible to remove from the part. Now, we're going to back up a little bit to the casting part. When you are casting, when you are mixing up your polyurethane, you want to pigment your polyurethane, especially if you're using a translucent polyurethane and translucent paints. You want to pigment to the lightest shade of your flesh tone. You saw me point at the inside of my wrist there at the beginning, and that's because we want to pick the lightest shade of flesh tone and match to that, because with translucent colors like this, when we're painting a translucent paint job like this, we can always go darker, but we can't go lighter. So real important to understand that going into the casting process, because if you cast a part that's too dark, you'll actually have to lighten it up by opaquing the part with paint, and then that of course destroys that translucency. So if you're relying on the translucent nature of the casting material, real important to not pigment your part too dark. So again, match to the lightest flesh tone on your subject. So that's where that inside of the wrist is really important. That's usually a part that doesn't get much sun, so it's easy to match and make sure that's a nice light flesh tone. But the lighter, the better. Now the paint we'll be using, this is a paint base, and this comes in a form that cures clear. And this is a single component paint base. This is actually a water-based polyurethane paint system. And this is SC-94. And you want to make sure you shake it well before each use. And because this is a water-based system and a water-based urethane, make sure you keep that sealed up when you're not using it. And for this process, you're going to use a lot of wax paper cups and popsicle sticks. Now, since the SC-94 is a clear paint base, we'll need to pigment that. And in order to do that, we're going to add some water-based pigments. And these are water-based tints that you can get from a paint store. And I just went over to my local paint store and told them I needed some tints that were compatible with water-based. So typically like latex house paints. So that's the kind of pigment you want to ask for. And then as far as brushes go, you can use pretty much any kind of brush with this because it's a water-based system, so we're not using any solvents. But you want to make sure you use good quality brushes so the hairs don't fall out while you're painting. And for the airbrush, this is already airbrush consistency, so you don't have to thin out the SC-94. That will typically run through most external mix airbrushes. And I also like to have a hairdryer on hand that allows me to speed set some of those layers of color. But back to the airbrush, the two airbrushes I typically use are this super cheap Harbor Freight airbrush. This is a quick release airbrush. This is good for just very broad airbrush work. And then for more detailed work, here's my trusty Pache airbrush. This one also works great for more detailed work. Now, flick brushes are something you need to make yourself. You could use an old toothbrush, but I typically like to just chop down some 1-inch or half-inch chip brushes and chop those down to where they're about half-inch to 3/4 of an inch long. And these work great for flicking on little spots of color and also for doing freckles and things like that. Now, the other thing really important is a white piece of cardboard or foam core board, and this allows you to test your colors and the intensity of the colors and the translucency, especially when you're doing very thin washes before you put that on your actual piece. And paper towels. You're going to use a lot of paper towels, especially for blotting the surface after you do your flick brush. Now, the first step is to mix up some paints. So for that, we're going to dispense some SC-94 into some little wax paper cups. And if we have our intrinsic color of our part close to the flesh tone that we want, then it doesn't take much paint over the top to achieve a high level of realism. Now, for the sake of this video, I am not a professional painter. I'm mainly here to tell you about the technique side and the science side of getting a good bond between the paint medium and the polyurethane. But just for the sake of it, here I'm going to go over the colors that I typically mix up. I only mix up maybe 5 or 6 different colors. I don't really do a lot of flesh tones. Again, if my intrinsic color is pretty accurate, I don't need much of that. The main thing you need to know here is these pigments are very concentrated. So just add them a drop at a time and mix that in. And ideally, again, if you're doing a translucent paint job, you want your paints to be more washes rather than opaque colors. You want these to be still translucent. And I always like to keep a little bit more of the SC-94 on hand. Here I'm just pouring out some with no pigment added, and that way I can use that to thin out some of those other colors. And always helpful to have a little color wheel on hand, just so you can brush up on your color theory as you're moving along. But typically I use like an orange, a red, a purple, like sometimes a blue vein color, and then some washes of either brown or kind of a yellowish brown. But obviously that will change based on your style of painting. Now, the 3 techniques that I typically use are just regular brush painting and flick brush painting and then airbrushing. Now, for a lot of the detail work like the eyes and the lips and some of the details around the nose, I like to do that with a small brush. And here I'm just going in and putting some color on the lips and around the eyes. And because we are using these very translucent washes, sometimes you'll have to build up that color in a few layers. And better to take your time than try to do it all at once, because that's where you wind up with very opaque, unnatural looking paint. Now, for any cleanup, you're just going to be using clean water. Just distilled water is best, especially for running through your airbrush, but just make sure you have some clean water on hand to both run through your airbrush and clean it, but also to clean your brushes as you're moving along. Now, I painted a lot of SkinFlex 5 parts recently with SC-94 and gotten great results, and also with the flexible foams from BJB. But just remember, your results may vary. If you're not using this over SkinFlex 5, make sure you test it to make sure it's compatible with the rubber or foam material that you're using. Now here I'm using a paper towel to just clean up any excess. And real important to remember that even though this is a water-based system, the SC-94 dries really fast. You want to be prepared to wipe off anything that you don't want to be there. Now for the flick brush here, what we're going to do is dip our flick brush in the color we want. And here I'm testing it on my little piece of foam core board. Flick it, and then use a paper towel to blot off the excess. And that helps subdue those little dots of color. And it spreads them out a little bit, but most importantly, removes the excess so you don't wind up with little pimples of color when that dries. Because if you just flick this on and leave it, the color is going to be too intense, and it'll actually leave little raised bumps on the surface of your part. So real important, flick that on, and you want to move fast here because, again, this does dry fast. So flick on your color, and then immediately transition to a clean paper towel to blot off that excess material. And you'll notice also when I'm blotting, you want to do that straight down and straight back up so you don't accidentally streak those little spots of color, because that'll ruin a paint job really quick if you smear those little dots. So you want to make sure you go straight down, blot them, and then pick your paper towel straight back up. So here I'm doing another layer of overlapping color here. This is kind of a light brown that I'm flicking on. And then again, I'll follow that up with my paper towel and blot off the excess. And what you're doing, the whole point of doing this flick brush technique is natural human skin is very mottled looking. It's not a one homogeneous color. So in order to get a realistic flesh tone, you want to layer a lot of different colors like this, and this just gets you a lot more realistic look to your end result. And as soon as you apply a color like that, it's a good idea to hit that with a hairdryer and dry that really well. And then that way you don't have to worry about that accidentally mixing with the next layer of color, because if you apply too many colors too fast, you get kind of a muddy look to the part. Now, I'm sure many of you watching this are much better painters than I am, but this will show that you can get good results even with very minimal painting skill. But I typically alternate back and forth between both brush painting and flick brush painting and then airbrushing. And the reason for that is if you just airbrush, a lot of times it can wind up looking very airbrushed. And if you use just a flick brush, it looks just like you used a flick brush all over it. But if you use all three methods in concert, you wind up with a much more realistic flesh tone. So always a good idea to be prepared to switch back and forth. Obviously, for things like veins, especially like varicose veins and things like that, I like to switch to a very thin brush for that. But for this subtle modeling, I really like to do that with a flick brush because it looks more random and much more natural. And remember, at this stage, we're not creating freckles. You can do that later on in the process. For this flick brush part, we're doing this with very light washes of color to get that very natural modeling look. So again, you're not wanting this to look like a whole bunch of dots. You're wanting a very subtle effect here. So flicking that on with very translucent colors and then blotting it back off, you just get this nice buildup of very modeled, natural looking skin. And now I'm going to switch over to an airbrush, and here I'm just using kind of a yellowish brown. And I use a foam core board to just test that intensity. And SC-94 is airbrush ready. It comes in a consistency that will go through an external mix airbrush, so easy to use without thinning. And one of the things when you're airbrushing, make sure you keep that airbrush moving in irregular, asymmetrical patterns, because if you're just painting left to right, like you're painting the side of a car, it will look like you did just that. Now, the reason I'm blotting this right afterwards is that removes the gloss. If I blot this or pat this gently right as soon as I airbrush over the top, that gets me a nice matte finish and I don't wind up with a glossy surface. Now, these small airbrushes don't have a lot of overspray, but still a good idea to work in a well-ventilated work environment. Now, for the sake of this video, I am done with this little face here. If my subject had more freckles or something like that, I might follow this up with some more freckles, maybe a little bit more airbrushing. But these are the basic techniques and the core things you need to know to get a good paint job and get it to stick on a polyurethane rubber material. Now, of course, cleanup is with clean water. I typically use distilled water, especially for my airbrushes. Distilled water doesn't have any impurities that can clog up your airbrush. So real important when you're airbrushing with SC-94, always a good idea to clean up with distilled water. Now, once your paint job is done, you're ready to matte the end result if you are so inclined to do that. And you can do that with translucent face powder, but I usually let this sit and dry for a few hours. And then the end result is SC-94 well bonded to that flexible surface. And that's really important to make sure you have a paint that will stretch and move with your flexible part. Good example of that is this leg model made with SkinFlex 5 and a very soft flexible core of TC266 flexible foam. Now, as always, all the materials I used in the video will be linked in the video description, so be sure to check those out. You can find all of that at bjbmaterials.com. And as always, thanks for watching, and thanks for supporting the channel.